So hello and welcome to the Tarig Motorsports Show. I am your host, The Big Ticket. I'm your host, Tarig Waldron, aka The Big Ticket, here to talk to you about a variety of things. This podcast covers multiple genres of motorsport, mainly Formula One, WRC. Sometimes we go into maybe some rallycross, IndyCar, NASCAR stuff. Sometimes it's mainly just the things that I've tuned in over the last race weekend. So in this episode, we're actually going to be talking about, some quick bites of news, the World Superbike, BMW's future, as well as some of the W Series news. We're going to be talking about, of course, Formula One, a little bit about the Acropolis Rally that occurred in Greece. That's about it. That's all I really tuned into this weekend. It's been a busy last few month and a half for me. A lot of changes going on in my life, so definitely couldn't make as many videos as I wanted to, couldn't really put down the content that I wanted to, but I would like to say that things are becoming a little bit more stable as time goes by, and I'm here back with another episode. If you enjoy this podcast, be sure to rate it 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you tune in. I'm available on all platforms, and there is a video version of this podcast available on YouTube at Tarig Waldron Motorsports Show. Head on over to my YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe, and check out all the other content that I have on there, past previous episodes, as well as discussion videos and some gameplay stuff. But moving on, if you want some more motorsport related content aside from video and podcast, you can head on over to the link in the description. That will take you to all my other social media platforms where I make some short clips, short little discussions, all that kind of stuff. It's something that just isn't as strenuous or as extensive as podcast episode. Like I said previously, this episode will be about some quick bites of news, Formula One, the Greek Rally, and also something that I do want to touch on, which I made notes for a previous episode, but I haven't done, was the IMSA. They have a driver's scholarship program. I think that's what it's called. I will actually have to flip back in my notes and discuss it. I'm an old-fashioned dude. I am young, but I am old-fashioned. I take notes. No, I don't type it up. No, I don't do that. I write it and cultivate and all that kind of stuff. That's who I am. If you are new to this podcast, just a little tidbit for you. But starting off, we're going to start off with the quick bites. As always, that's usually what I tend to start off with. If you haven't seen, there are some videos out. I saw it on Twitter. I did retweet it. There are the NASCAR Next Gen racing cars. They're doing some testing. I forgot what track they were on, but if you know, be sure to leave that in the comment section. They were doing some testing, doing a whole lot of overwork as well, making sure that these cars are ready for the next season, ready for that switch over to the next generation of racing in NASCAR. Another thing, if I step away from NASCAR, we're going to supercars too. In my opinion, they're sort of related. NASCAR is American, supercars is Australian. That, I think, is the main difference between the two. But I think that they cover sort of the same thing. Overpowered V8s or overpowered supercars, pretty much. Raw powered cars, anyway. The Gold Coast 500 has been canceled for another year. Has been canceled for 2021. They have. Now, the Supercars administration has pledged that they're going to bring this back for 2022. It's just that they don't want to take the financial risk of putting up, the Gold Coast 500 this year, especially with all the ever-changing things going on with COVID. We know, the new variants and all that kind of stuff that can be very impactful financially if they decide to close down their entire cities and entire areas for this race and then end up having to be restricted or all that kind of stuff. Yes, there is a big financial dilemma behind it, so completely understand the decision. Sucks that the Gold Coast 500 will not be here for another year, but hopefully it does make a substantial and great return. I'm pretty sure fans would love to see it, and fans would love to be there for 2022. Now, BMW has joined the World Superbike race, basically World Superbike Championship. They did that back in 2019. Unfortunately, that was made before any developments were made, actually, in their bike that they had at the time. I believe that was the S1000RR. Yeah, I think the S1000RR was their original bike, but that wasn't able to keep up. Obviously, the decision that came down to join World Superbike was done before the development teams were ever able to develop any type of real competitive race bike. Now, over the last few years, they've switched up from the S1000RR to the M1000RR, which is, as of right now, it has been holding up. Is it where it's supposed to be at? No, it is not. The reason I say this is because they're still out of the competitive realm for, the top fight. I think right now they're fighting for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not 100% sure on that, but I know that they're not fighting for top spot. They're not fighting for top 3 at this point. I don't believe they're fighting for, top to middle of the pack, which is pretty good after, just a new entry with a new bike. But of course, with a new bike comes, you don't expect them to be in the front. You don't expect them to be battling for first. You know what I'm saying? You expect them to be developing. You expect them to be testing. You expect them to be fine tuning. And from there, maybe a year, 2 years, 2 seasons, they'll actually now be competitive and now be able to actually hold up their own. That is something that I expect to see in the next few years. So I'm glad that they have stuck with World Superbike. Usually when there are companies and they're not doing well in a motorsport, in a championship, they normally pull out after 3-4 years. But I'm glad to know that BMW is in the World Superbike Championship for a long time, and they want to really dedicate an entire team and an entire force to making sure that they do attain championships later on in the next few years in the upcoming future. So glad to see that BMW is actually going to be sticking around for World Superbike. Ooh. I'm getting the jobs back, I'm getting the vibes, I'm getting the energy back, and I feel good being up here and actually talking. And it's been a while. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was a W series. Now, originally, to be honest, I had no recollection of what the W series was, but I did end up following on Twitter was Females in Motorsport. I do recommend that you follow them if you want to get all the top notch, if you want to know anything about female racing, honestly, or they do live updates on other races as well, but they really do get you woke, get you woke to the fact that there are some very great and there are some very talented female drivers out there. Now, the W series is a series fully dedicated to that, females racing, open wheel, one-seater, doing phenomenal work, I have to say. The one thing that I've noticed in this racing is that it's unconventional overtaking has been a big factor. I've checked back on the Dutch GP and I've checked back on a few races, I think 2 or 3 races before that. There are plenty of spots of unconventional racing that occurs. Not unconventional racing, but unconventional overtakes, and it makes it even more exciting. Whereas you would expect someone to make an overtake in this turn or whatever, they actually made it 2 turns beforehand in a spot that you wouldn't think that they could get through. It's a nice mix-up, it's a nice shake-up, and it's a lot of action. I think it's 40 minutes or 30 minutes of sprint racing, and they're actually going at it, going for it, and really just everyone's pretty talented. I have to say, all of them are talented and all of them are doing great. And of course, there's one that I would like to highlight, which is Nerea I hope I don't mess her name up. Nerea Martin, I think, or Marti. I'm not 100% sure what her name is, but she is 4th in the championship. She was basically a rookie. In my opinion, I think she's basically a rookie when it comes down to it. She is fresh out of the driver's academy, but she is holding up very, very, very well. I believe she's 4th in the championship. I will actually talk about the championship standings as well, because we have Alice Powell and Jamie Chadwick are tied for 109 points. And then there's Emma Kimalainen, who has 75. She's in 3rd. And then, of course, Nerea Marti, who has 53 points. And then there's another one. I think her last name is Whirlwind or Walwind, something of that nature. But she has 40 points. And it's actually pretty... I like it. I like it. I'm actually looking forward to their next round is COTA, Circuit of the Americas, which is in Texas this year. Well, that's always in Texas. That's going to be in Texas. USA, whatever. I don't know how else you want me to say it, but I'm looking forward to that. And then of course I think they race the last race for them is Mexico, so I'm looking forward to those, and I'm looking forward to the competitive drive that these women do have. It's very exciting racing. I believe everyone should check it out. It's ecstatic work. It's great work, and I think they're doing a great job. Fantastic job. I would love to see that. I would love to see that series get bigger. I would love to see it grow. I would love to see them, get the financial backing of the level of Formula One and all that kind of stuff. I would love for that to occur, and I think it will over time. I think it will. Moving forward. I did say I was going to talk about the Greek Acropolis, my bad, Acropolis Rally. But before I get to that, I actually want to flip. Like I said, I have to flip back in my notes a little bit to the IMSA Diverse Driver Scholarship Program. Now, this is actually a article that I'm not 100% sure I have up. I don't have it up, but the overview of it basically is that the IMSA is trying to give, opportunities to people who normally wouldn't get them. They have a scholarship fund of, I believe, $250,000 to more money than that, available for one candidate every year is the idea that they have behind it. One candidate a year who will allow them to get the full season IMSA entry, as well as some other perks as well. They're going to have a Recaro seat. They're going to get two fuel tanks for the race. They're going to get fresh pair of tires every race or something of that nature, from that will be given for free from not for free, but that will be given from IMSA. Now, it's great. One person has the opportunity each year. I do have some notes down for it. I just don't have the article up. I would have read it, but I don't feel like researching all that right now. I don't even remember it completely. But diversity and inclusion, as we know, I'm big on that because from that background, diversity. I'm from that. So great to see that, IMSA is making a move to try and get more diversity and more opportunities given to different people and people of different backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I do have to say is I do have a few questions about this program because of the fact that they said it has to be official works, like you have to have some type of background in racing. You have to have some type of official results. You have to have that type of background, and you have to be highly interested in becoming a part of the IMSA. Obviously, if you're going through this trouble and if you want to get the scholarship, you probably have a ecstatic high level to be in IMSA or to be in racing in general. That's one. Two, I do need to know, is there a list of qualifying programs for it? Is there a list like SCCA? Would if you had results from the SCCA races that you've partaken in, would that allow you to be in there? Would that allow you to basically, be a candidate? Certain questions like that. What specific programs or what programs are not allowed? What programs are? Yes, they could say official, but there could be many programs that you think are official, which may not necessarily be what they're expecting. Another question that I have is business plan. In the article that I read, in the information that they were trying to give, it says that driver also has to come up with a business plan. Yes, I'm remembering this correctly. The driver has to come up with a business plan as well. So my thoughts go like so. Basically, I'm a driver. I know how to drive. I drive well. I can put pedal to the metal, make it competitive, whatever. My question is, would they be giving help on the business plan end, or because when I read the article, it said that it just specifically kind of falls on the driver to come up with their business plan and make sure that they have, some type of income, whereas sponsorships and all that kind of stuff in the racing. Granted, most of the time when teams do, formulate and end up joining the IMSA or racing in the IMSA or racing in any of their programs, the pilot challenge, something of that nature, the actual IMSA racing, I don't know what they're called, but they have 3 separate categories. It's the IMSA, like the actual sports car championship, then it's the pilot challenge program, and then it's one more program. I'm not 100% sure. Please let me know in the comments, or let me know on any of my socials if what it is. Actually, just let me know what it is, because I'm not 100% sure. But you have to come up with a business plan in order to maintain your income. You have to come up with a business plan in order to actually stay a part of IMSA. Because when you join, yes, you race, and I mean, you're good for, I guess, a year, but you also want continual racing. So what if they had no business plan experience or that kind of stuff? Do you assist in that? Because people can be good at driving, but they may not be good at other stuff. So it's just things of that nature that I think of, that I think about when I read some of these articles, and it can be puzzling sometimes. It can be puzzling. Now, another thing is, would IMSA help them attain sponsors? Most of the time, I think the IMSA would help, get at least some meetings or something up. I feel like that is something that seems correct, something that seems right, something that seems like it's supposed to happen. If you're gonna give me the entry and all that kind of stuff, once again, you still need some type of meeting or some type of sponsorship backing in order to keep continuing year after year. Now, they do say that for the second year that the IMSA will give, I think, another 100 or 130,000, something of that nature, to the candidate of the previous year, so that they could continue on in whatever they're trying to do within IMSA. So yes, I think that they do still fund for the second year if you're able to stay in there. But helping with business plan is one, and then of course sponsorships. Those are 2 big factors that weren't really discussed within the article, and that wasn't really discussed altogether, because I believe they expected to fall onto the driver's head. And all in all, I could understand why, because it's up to you to really maintain your money, maintain what you have, and maintain the various needs that you will need in order to continue racing. I understand that, but you need to help. Yes, this is their foot in the door, but just because you give them the scholarship program money, whatever, does that automatically mean sponsors are going to be interested? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Yes, there are a lot of companies that want to back, diversity, that want to do those kind of things, but I don't think that a lot of companies are going to jump at it right off the bat, because that's money that you may have to invest and all that kind of stuff in someone who doesn't necessarily have a full-fledged racing background, someone who, like I said, what actual programs, what actual things do qualify you to be at that level, to be at the IMSA level. So just stuff like that really goes through my mind. But like I said, it's good that IMSA is making moves in this direction, but they may have to work a little bit more on actually assisting with business plans, making that accessible, as well as making sponsorships accessible. Yes, companies reach out, or people can reach out to companies, don't get me wrong, but you need an officiant in there, and IMSA could be that for those scholarship candidates and scholarship winners that they end up taking on and actually giving out funds to. So that's my little 2 cents on that. Now, as I flip back, the Greek Acropolis Rally. Now, the last time there was a rally event held there was 2018. The last time WRC has been there was 2013. 4 days of rally on, the iconic stages, as well as some new little bits and pieces. I think it was 15 stages over the course of almost 300 kilometers. Convert that to miles for me. I'm not 100% sure what that would be. Let me know what that is in miles. But The classic stage known as Tarzan is back. I don't know if there's older people who watch this or listen, but known as Forna, it's now Tarzan, named after the officer whose nickname was Tarzan. But I would say that this was definitely challenging for some drivers and co-drivers, simply because of the fact that they haven't been there before. On some of these stages, on some of these events, they've actually been there. They know, the stages are relatively the same, just that conditions might be a little different. Might be snowing, might be raining, all that kind of stuff. Might be mud rather than gravel, that kind of stuff. But a lot of them, or a good little piece of them, haven't really been in the Acropolis. I keep saying that. The Acropolis Rally. A lot of them have not been there for that rally and really understand, all the things that they go, all the things that they need to really pay attention to. So yes, that was relatively challenging for some people. And another thing is, being that it hasn't really been touched or hasn't really been driven like that in, a few years. After the first pass and stuff like that, there's a lot of unearthed things that can pop up, huge, more even bigger rocks or whatever that could be challenging on tires and the cars if the driver's not really focusing. I did miss some of the highlights. I wish I tuned in for some of those highlights, but all I really paid attention to was the results, and I think I only watched the power stage. It's not. I feel as though I didn't do my research on this as much as I needed to. I was way too focused on Formula One, and way too focused on reading Twitter comments. Jesus, the toxicity. But all I have to say, and there's a lot of history with Greece as well. A lot of history. Colin McRae has 5 wins from 96 to 02. 2 with Subaru and 3 with Ford Focus, with his Ford Focus. And Ford is at the top of the manufacturers' wins. I think they got either 13 or 14. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's one of those numbers. But the results are as follows. Yaris WRC takes spots 1 and 3. They actually won by 42 seconds over I think Tarig. I'm pretty sure they got him by 42 seconds or so. And Sebastian Ogier grabs 3rd. Elfyn Evans, I believe he finished off in 5th. If not 5th, then it was 8th. See, this is what I mean. I wish I paid attention to it a little bit more, but I was so focused on the Italian GP. I lost my track. But Seb Ogier gets 3rd. Tarig pulls away with 2nd, and I don't know this driver's name because it is difficult to pronounce for me personally. But Yaris WRC, they grab 1st. And I think overall in the point standings, I'm not 100% sure where everything is at. But that is a discussion that I will love to have at the next rally event. And I think from there, I would actually focus deeply on rally. I will focus deeply on rally and make sure that I give you guys the real deal, the real deal understanding of it, and make sure that I really discuss it and talk about it. That's really all I have to say for WRC. I'm not even sure about what the next event is. I have not been paying attention to it this year. I just haven't, which sucks because that was the original thing that I wanted to pay attention to. But moving on to the Italian GP, Monza, we had the sprint, we had qualifying, we had the sprint race, and we had the actual race. And then we had the post-race nonsense. But as we start, we already know how qualifying went. Bottas was 1st in qualifying and the sprint race. I believe Hamilton was... I'm not sure where Hamilton fell on that line. Ricardo, I believe, was in there as well. Top 4, top 5, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. They were up at the top, which is great. I'm glad to see Danny Rick really stepping his game up. One thing I do want to talk about. Well, I'll get to that. It's okay. But my man Pierre out, wing damage in the sprint qualifying race. It sucked to see. It was hard. I'm a big Pierre Gasly fan. I'm a big Pierre Gasly fan. I believe he's one of the most underrated drivers on the grid, simply because the man has been able to show relative consistency, and he's usually not talked about. At least in the stuff that I've seen and all the things that I've researched. Even other fans have noticed it, that he's an underrated racer. He's an underrated driver. A lot of people don't understand that he is one of the greats right now. In my opinion, he's been utmost consistent. I think before Monza, AlphaTauri was the only team to have consistently gotten points this season. But of course, Pierre as well as Tsunoda were DNF for this race. But I could dive into the race a little bit, do a slight little recap. Ricciardo, right at the start of the race, he grabs the lead and gets the whole shot. Hamilton versus Verstappen, turn 4. Lewis Hamilton ends up going wide and making sure to hit that runoff. They do come close, they do touch. But of course, Lewis, as the passive driver that he is, up until backs down and allows Verstappen to go. And then at that point, Norris passed him as well. And Lewis rejoined and was behind Norris, and yada, 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 yada. Now, Antonio Giovinazzi, he actually gets spun out. Something that sucks, because what's the run-on meme with Antonio Giovinazzi is that whenever his seat is in jeopardy, he pulls off some amazing results in order to make sure that he don't get talked to, that he don't lose his place, that kind of stuff. And I mean, hey, the kid is remarkable when he has to be. But he spun out. He was out of the race from that point on. I believe he ran wide, but then he got back onto track in an unsafe manner, cut in front of, I believe it was Carlos Sainz, and from there got spun around. But moving on, Norris had some impressive work. I do want to highlight that he had some very impressive work holding off Hamilton for as long as he did, or holding him off for how he did. Really good defending and really pushing, late braking, all that kind of stuff. Great work by Lando Norris in holding off, a 7-time world champion. But then we go into Lewis and Max. Before I begin on that, people. It's not. I don't really know how to say it. I don't really know how to say it just yet. But first things I want to start off with is thank goodness for the halo. Thank goodness for that. We've seen it countless times, be beneficial, and we've seen it honestly save lives. Not only with Roman but also, of course, Lewis Lewis at Monza, and then we've seen it, save Leclerc not too long ago. I think a year or so back. We've seen that. So thank you to the inventor of the Halo. We appreciate you. You are appreciated by the fans. Trust me, you are. Everyone has their opinions. Everyone has their values. Everyone, says what they want to say. Everyone has their means, and everyone thinks that they're right. But here's what I want to say. Max has always been this way. This is not new. This is not something that just happens. This is not something that has increased because of the rivalry. No, Max has always been the type to fight for positions. Whether or not he feels as though he could get them, he'll still keep fighting. That's usually what he does. Most of the time, other drivers back down because of the fact that they want to complete the race. They don't want to crash out. In this instance, neither driver wanted to back down. Now we saw at turn 4. Lewis backed away. He took the runoff and lost the position. But in this sense right here, in this specific sense, Lewis coming out from the pits, Max coming up fast. In my personal opinion, in my own views, would I consider this a racing incident? keep the fans happy. Yes, I would have. If I was the FIA, I would have considered this a racing incident. Keep it so that they're both out of the race. They both cannot continue. They both crashed out. Both of them, if I'm being honest with you, could be seen as at fault. So, racing incident. I don't think I would have penalized Max Verstappen. I don't think I would have done that. But I understand it. Okay, here's my breakdown. Lewis did try to squeeze Max. I will full on admit that. Lewis did try to squeeze Max, but what driver doesn't? Okay, yes, you leave a space, but you leave it narrow so that the driver still has to back down, especially going into that chicane. But we also see a lot of people like to say that, oh, Lewis didn't leave enough space going into the second section of the chicane, when in reality, no, it didn't look like that. But that was done so that Max would back down like normal drivers would, or take the run off on the left side. But Max continued to turn into that corner. He continued to turn into Lewis. He continued to do so. Any driver who had, some type of respect and or sportsmanship, like who understand back out or maybe take that runoff. You're not going to be penalized for taking the runoff or anything of that nature, but you'd be right there, still in the fight, still being able to actually overtake later on in the race. You never know. Max is great. We know Max is great. We know he has talent, and he just won at Zandvoort. His home race, a whole festival vibe was erupting in Zandvoort in the Dutch. You know what I'm saying? He came off some impressive work. It would have been better to get points than to not get any. But there's always something. Now, there's always people who like to play the blame game. Me, obviously, I don't really care. Whatever happened. Hey, they're both out. I see it as even. But as we look into it, the Twitter is just erupts with nonsense after these types of races, especially after these two have clashed, countless times this year. A lot of people have given their views and they have gone to the extreme on some of their viewpoints and some of their perspectives. They have gone to these extremes. Have some people trying to just highlight, some work and all that kind of stuff, and people just go ham on them, and people just, they say some disrespectful stuff, say some nasty stuff. I don't understand why the Formula One fan base is the way it is. Obviously, there are some more mature people who can have respectful conversations, who can have their opinions, who don't need to offend another person in order to express themselves. Anyway, I digress. We always knew that these guys were going to clash again. Did we know how bad? Did we know the severity? No, we did not. Obviously, like with Silverstone, we knew this was bound to happen. One thing I'd say though is that they both are going to be putting it down on the line. Neither of them are backing down from this point forward. So I do see another crash happening again this season, at least before the end of the season. Maybe it might be on the last race, who knows? But this is definitely looking like a very tight championship. And if they continue down this path of how they are in the points, it's going to come down to the last race, or to the last two races. It's going to come down to a clutch win that one of these drivers are going to need. And with that, neither of them are going to want to back down from anything. And I think that is going to end up putting them both in a predicament of safety, in a safety predicament. I think that is going to put them into a much bigger crash. I think both of them are going to be involved in something that at one point that's going to leave one of them beat up and battered, at least. That's what I believe if they continue down this path. And I know the competitive edge. I know, everyone has brought up the Ayrton Senna quote of, if you see a gap and you don't go for it, then you're no longer a racing driver. Yes, we understand that, but you also have to think about safety. You also have to think about the future within this race. It's not just about that gap. Yes, you can go after the gap, but if you see that gap is closed, you back out or you take another route and you come back around. There's other ways that you could do it. Now, going into that crash, yes, I do believe that both of them have their own faults in this, okay? Of course, there's Lewis. Yes, he did squeeze Max to that. He did squeeze Max. I'll admit that all day, every day. He did squeeze him. But once again, that is something that drivers do. That is something that we've seen countless times being used as a method to keep that opponent back, to make sure that they back down. But we also see that those people, when they normally back down, especially if they're going faster, they usually, I mean, it's Hamilton on fresh tires, and what Max was on, I'm not sure, what was it, 14 lap old tires or something like that? I'm not sure. But we see Hamilton on fresh tires, not up to temperature. And then we see Max coming down with great pace. I think if Max had just backed off in that one spot of the chicane, he would have gotten him by turn 4? That's what I believe. I think he would have gotten him in very quickly. I don't think that would have been the same. I think Max, yes, it would have been a great battle to see. They would have been battling for third. Or, I mean, they might have caught Lando, whatever. It would have been a different race if Max had backed out. That's all I have to say. It would have been a different race if Max had backed out. It would have been way more competitive later on down the line. They might have crashed later on down the line. Who knows? But I think it would have been a much different race. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I know a lot of people have their views. I know a lot of people feel the way that they feel. Keep it respectful. I do want to say keep it respectful. I don't believe Max should have gotten that penalty at all. That's my personal opinion. I don't believe Max should have gotten that penalty. That's a little ridiculous. They were both out. It's a racing incident. They were both pretty much at fault in that. I don't believe Max should have gotten that penalty. That's one. Three grid places. Yes, I mean, he can make that up, but I don't think he should have had. I don't think he should have to. But also, we cannot deny the fact that Max needs to relax just a little bit. I know he wants to win. I know he wants to finally get that championship. Everyone wants to see you get it. Everyone understands that you deserve a championship at this point in time. We all know that. But do it in a manner that you don't start going from a hero to a villain. Do it in a manner where you don't, I don't know how else to describe. Do it in a manner where you're not putting yourself in jeopardy of DNF. You know what I'm saying? Do it in a manner to where you can actually continue the fight throughout the race and have a second chance at coming back. Do it in that type of manner. Do it where, you actually pretty much deserve it. Not in a way that takes out another driver. Not in a way that, I mean, how do we see it? He's a bully. Not in that format, okay? Not in that format. Now, I could put some blame on Lewis. Yes, I said this is pretty much both at fault, which is why I thought that this should have been a racing incident. Lewis, honestly, should have been braking beforehand. I don't think he should have cut that far into the track as well after getting out of that. After, what is that line called? Whatever. After the race, after the pit line. I don't remember what it's called. Blending line, something. I don't remember. But I don't think he should have cut that far over, especially knowing that Verstappen was right there. Verstappen was basically halfway. His front wheel was ahead of Lewis's back wheel. There you go. And I don't think that Lewis should have cut over as far as he did. I feel like he definitely should have left more space for sure. And going into that second part of the chicane, yes, everyone was expecting Max to take that wide line, of course, and from there have to finish out that turn wide. We were expecting that. I'm sure Lewis was as well. But obviously Lewis made the move accordingly. He didn't want Max to get that position. He was like, hey, screw it. I'm gonna push. I'm not gonna back down here. And sure enough, we see what two bulls running at each other do. I'm not sure if I still have the same train of thought that I had at the beginning of this. But anyway, as I continue, both out. I could read the official statements from the FIA. I do have the official statements. I think they're on my phone. The stewards heard from both drivers, from the driver of the 33 and the driver of the 44, and team representatives. They reviewed the video evidence and determined that the driver of car 33 was predominantly to blame for the collision at turn 2. Car 44 was exiting the pits. Car 33 was on the main straight at the 50-meter board before turn 1. Car 44 was significantly ahead. Hamilton was significantly ahead of Max. Max braked late and started to move alongside Lewis. Although at no point in the sequence does Max get any further forward than just behind the front wheel of car of Lewis. Now, during the hearing, the driver of car 33 asserted that the cause of the incident was the driver opening up the wheel after turn 1 and squeezing him to the apex of turn 2. Then Lewis said that Max attempted to pass very late. Should have given up the corner either by backing off sooner or by turning left behind the curb to take the run off area. Now, the stewards observed the footage and they believe that, or they observed the footage and seen that Lewis was driving an avoiding line, although his position did cause Max to go onto the curb. But further, the stewards observed that Max was not at all alongside Lewis until significantly into the entry of turn 1. In the opinion of the stewards, this maneuver was attempted too late for the driver of car 33, Max, to have the right to racing room. Now, while Lewis could have steered further from the curb to avoid the incident, the stewards determined that his position was reasonable and therefore find that Max was predominantly to blame for the incident. Like I've stated, that's pretty much the official FIA right there. But like I've stated, Lewis did squeeze him. You can see that through the replays, through the footage, all that kind of stuff. Lewis did squeeze him. But I strongly believe that Max should have been mature in this. He should have been mature in this. You're up, 3 points? Should have been mature enough to understand. Just fucking back out. Just back out of this one little instance and come back stronger in the next few turns. It's not hard. It's not hard. Yes, you want the position. Yes, you believe that you deserve the right to whatever. But just be a little bit more mature when it comes to certain spots like this. And another issue is sausage curbs, but we're going to leave that for another discussion. Because sausage curbs is kind of annoying, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't even race in Formula 1. I'm talking about just the game. But nah. Sausage curbs is sort of an issue as well because but they do their job. You understand? They do their job. Of making sure that people don't just cut corners and exceed track limits and all that kind of stuff. They do their job. So I don't really have an issue with sausage curbs. I just felt like that was funny that people were blaming the curb. But as we go into it, Max, get a little bit more mature when you in those types of situations. You're a great driver. Good performance. Good altogether. And I love the way that you drive. But you got to get just a little bit more mature in certain situations like that, where you don't necessarily have that corner. I know fully well you knew you did not have that corner. Just a little bit more mature on that end, and you'll be all right. You'll be all right. You're going to get that championship. Hopefully throughout this season, we see you grow just a little bit, and we see you really, get a little grasp as to how it goes. Now you got this penalty. You don't want another one. You know what I'm saying? And really focus. We want you to win. We want you to have a championship. Yes, Lewis is 7-time world championship. He's going for his 8th. I personally would love to see it, but I would also love to see you get your due. Be smart. All right? Too many DNFs in the last couple of years. Lewis has been racing for since 2006. So a long damn time. And you have been racing for 7 years and you have more do not finishes due to crashes. That says something about your antics, about the way you drive. That says something about your maturity in the sport. Sometimes just play a little passive. Be aggressive when you need to be passive when you need to be, but don't put your race in jeopardy. That's all I gotta say for that. But once again, props to McLaren for their 1-2. Danny Rick is back in the business, and of course, when he's on the podium, you gotta take a shoey. Well, Bottas hasn't. If you go to the videos and stuff like that, you'll see Bottas did not partake. And I believe in one of the post race interviews, he was like, "No, I have never done it, and I don't think I ever will." And Danny was like, "I got you next time." So, hey, by all means, I love to see the great spirit, and props to Danny, props to McLaren, props to Lando for doing such good work, especially with defending against, a legend behind you. And Bottas, he did get third. Sergio Perez, unfortunately, he should have gotten third, but he was dropped back to fourth he was dropped back to fifth because of a 5-second penalty when he was battling with Bottas for position. I'm not necessarily sure if he deserved a 5-second penalty. I don't really think he deserved a penalty at all. I wasn't sure if he got that position or not. I'm not sure that's even in my notes, really. Yeah, I'm not even sure if that was in my notes. It don't look like it was, but just the fact that he got that 5-second penalty, I believe he exceeded track limits in a fight or something, got a position. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was exactly, but I know that it was during that fight with Bottas for third, going into turn 4. He did run wide, and he did end up on the runoff, but I think he came back out in top position. I don't know what it was. I think he did come back out in a high position, so I think he got an advantage from that. I'm not sure, but because of that 5-second penalty, Valtteri, he gets third on the podium. McLaren gets their 1-2, and people are happy. Whatever. Now the sprint races. This is what I just want to finish off with. The sprint races, now that we've seen the 2 that we're going to have for this season, let's have a nice little overview conversation about them. Should there be more? Should there be less? Or should there be none? Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you believe is the right way for Formula 1 to move forward with the sprint races. Me personally, like I said in one of my previous podcast videos, it is taking a higher risk at increased damage and making sure that it destroys someone's race. The reason I say that, Pierre, clear-cut evidence. Clear-cut evidence, Pierre. Good race, but took it out in the sprint qualifying, or good qualifying, took it out in the sprint qualifying race. And from that, when it rains and pours, horrible stuff for the actual race. This was one of the problems that I brought up in one of those previous episodes. And I think that necessarily, hey, it's still a good thing. Still a good thing. Still good to see some action, on the weekend, on Saturday and all that kind of stuff. But stick with the format that you have. Stick with the old format. Don't really bother with the sprint qualifying races. And I feel as though sprint qualifying, it's just you're making every driver do their first stint before the pit stops and then just waving the checkered flag. It's just a little goofy. I don't believe that they should be there at all. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel. And of course, toxic Twitter. All the people making these, horrible comments, and all the people who do what they do. I'm closing up my book as of right now. Understand that people do have opinions. Understand that people are the way they are. But you shouldn't have to put down another person in order to get your opinion across. That's really all I have to say to that. But this has been the Tarig Waldron Motorsports Show. I was your host, Tarig Waldron. If you enjoyed this podcast, rate it 5 stars on whatever streaming platform that you're listening to. And if you're on YouTube, give it a like, share with your peoples. Let's just have a nice little chat for the future. I am a little bit back on schedule, thank goodness. So expect the episode next week. Props to all of y'all. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for tuning in. And peace. That is it for me. That is it for the show. I hope y'all have a blessed day, blessed week, blessed afternoon, blessed night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Stay blessed. Stay up. Have a good time.